for the class at the bank, so I just thought, I'll put it on. And then I'll put it back in the cupboard after the video. So yeah, look, I mean, making a video like this, there's a lot of stuff on the internet about ways to save money, and I don't want to replicate this stuff. I just want to say like what I've learned about living in China and saving money in China. So, for example, when I first came to China, a lot of people used to tell me, it's about who you know, and you've got to know people to do anything. And while that's a little bit true, and it still is true, very much true for like bigger things, like if you're talking about the business world, just in your day-to-day experience, it's not really very true. And the most okay, I don't want to talk about everything at once. So the first thing I'll say, I'll just keep it simple and I'll get more complicated. So the first thing I would say is try to use public transport as much as possible. Now, every YouTube video about saving money will talk about that, but public transport in China is really, really cheap. You can use a Didi, and sometimes it's hard for me, like I think, okay, am I going to use a Didi that's going to cost me $4 to go 20 kilometers or 15 kilometers? Or am I thinking about Australian money? Or am I going to get the subway, which is going to cost me like 40 cents or 60 cents, but it's going to take more time, and I have to go through the security check and, whatever, like it's just a bit more difficult. And yeah, it is tough, but I have been making myself get the subways, and especially when you're first starting your teaching in China, and if you have like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday job, if you do get in the habit of just waiting for the bus, getting on the bus, going to the subway station, getting on the subway station, having a card or using an APP to pay for the subway, if you get into the habit of doing that, you're going to save a lot of money through the month. Now, if you're a long-term subscriber, forgive me if I've talked about some of these things before, but I'm getting to the good stuff. I'm going to get to the good stuff. Now, when it comes to markets, if you want to talk about like buying vegetables, buying fruits, if you go to like an outdoor market, you're always going to pay less than in a supermarket for most things, for most vegetables. And it can be a bit intimidating going into these markets because there are things everywhere and there are people everywhere, and you're a foreigner, you feel like it's a movie show or it's a comedy show, but there's so many different people coming through there. I mean, you're just drawing their attention for that moment, but there's, believe it or not, even more interesting people in China than the average foreigner. There's local notables and there's all kinds of different people. So yeah, don't feel like everybody's looking at you. They're just looking at you as you walk past. But if you do go to those markets and you do buy your vegetables and your fruits and those kinds of things in those markets, you're going to be saving a lot of money. Now, are the market holders going to be charging you more? The worst thing you can do in those markets as a foreigner is to pay, like kind of tip them. Like they tell you that it's 6 yuan for a gin of, which is half a kilogram of this or half a gin of that. And you give them like 20 RMB and you sort of say, keep the change. Okay? If you go in there with this kind of attitude, they will take advantage of that, and I've always believed that it's kind of disrespecting people to give them those kind of like tips, because it's kind of like you're having this attitude of like, you're a loser, here's a couple of RMB, that's not important to me because I'm so rich, my life's so great. It's sort of like, I've always thought that was a bad attitude. So if you go in there and they say it's 12 RMB and you give them 12 RMB, that is like setting that standard of like, that's who this guy is, like this guy's not an idiot, okay? He is not a fool. And you can bargain a little bit as well, like when your Chinese gets a bit better, if somebody says something's, if it's written on the board, it's unlikely they're going to like lower their price, because they get sick of like talking to every middle-aged woman about the price of onions or whatever. So they have the price there. Normally that's just the price, but it can't hurt to ask. Now, when it comes to meats and those kinds of things, I would usually go to a supermarket, but again, you know, those markets, they do sell meat. There's nothing wrong with the meat there. The meat is often better than the meat in the markets. And these Chinese women, I mean, these Chinese people, I shouldn't just say women, Chinese people will not accept sub-quality food, sub-quality meat. So if the meat isn't good, that business is gone. So don't worry about that. But I always just found it a bit easier to buy meat at supermarkets because I just, you know, buy a whole bunch of it. And I sort of felt like it was a bit easier for me to buy meat at real supermarkets. Okay, now I promise you, don't click away. I'm getting to the good stuff. In Australia or America or wherever, you walk down the street, you've got a couple of, you know, dollars in your pocket, and you think, well, it's summertime. I'm going to buy a pair of sunglasses. You walk into a glasses shop. As a foreigner, you're going to ask a price. As a foreigner, they're going to give you they're going to ask a much higher price. And it is boring. It's just how it is. Now, any product you could think of. I went into a glasses store in a big shopping mall. And it was summertime, and I was working at this international school. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to buy a good pair of sunglasses. I went into that shopping mall, I asked them how much the sunglasses were, and they said something like 2,000 RMB, which is about $400 Australian. So I was kind of like, oh, that's a lot, you know, I'm not sure about that. And I kept thinking about those sunglasses, and I kept kind of wondering about it, you know, and in the end it was just too expensive. Now, those same sunglasses on an app called Taobao. So let's just get it off. I just said it. There's a website called Taobao. There's an app called Taobao. If you want to save money in China, you would be buying a lot of your things on Taobao. I went to a shop yesterday and I tried to buy a coffee. It was the lady said 15 RMB for this little Starbucks coffee in a bottle. And I believe that was because I was a foreigner. As soon as I went in there, she put a mask on her face, and I said, how much is that? There was no price there. She said 15 RMB. And it's just, it's pathetic, to be honest. But on Taobao, you can get the same coffee for about 3.3 RMB. Now, I'm not saying that shops should charge the same as, you know, people are entitled to make a profit, but I'm just saying that kind of stuff will happen. So it is avoidable. Sunglasses on Taobao, I just bought 2 pairs. I gave myself a budget of 200 RMB. I bought 2 great pairs. One was 98 RMB, fantastic, got a strap. The other was 49 RMB, so about $10 Australian, about $20 Australian. And they're great, you know, so I'm really happy about that. Services. Now, this gets back to my first point about who you know. You can go down to the local expat bar and you say, I'm a bachelor, I just feel like my house, it's too big, I rented an apartment too big. That's a whole other video. I want a cleaner. A lot of foreigners have cleaners in China. Great, okay, you want a cleaner, cool. I've generally always cleaned my own house, but you might want a cleaner. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not judging anyone. I'd like to get a cleaner, but I'm not allowed to get one. But people will say, my friend's a cleaner. I've had people recommend me cleaners so many times. The cleaner, it's like she only charges 100 RMB, 200 RMB, 150 RMB. She's really nice. Okay, great. On apps, there's an app for cleaning and all these other services. 50 RMB, 60 RMB. Okay, so that's how much money you've saved. So if you're talking about any kind of like basic services, basic products, use these apps, use the internet, because the internet is going to be a lot fairer for you as a foreigner. And that's just how it is. Now, if you add up all of those costs over a year, you're talking about big money. So yeah, I mean, just to summarize, I mean, I am a teacher, so I'm used to this kind of thing. Public transport, apps, markets, services, clothes. You go into a clothing store, make sure you ask if there's some kind of discount or there is an app to scan, because that stuff's very common in China. Don't just kind of like, think, oh, I'm going to pay fair price. And again, on Taobao, socks, boxer shorts, t-shirts, whatever. If you want like a big stack of t-shirts this big, it's tempting to think, well, I'm going to go to a market, one of those big markets. But again, as a foreigner, they're going to charge you a price which is often exorbitant. Not always, but often. Now, the final thing I want to say is about the fruit markets, the vegetable markets. Some people might think, really? Are they really going to charge me a similar price or the same prices to Chinese people? Yeah, they are. Because those people, this is why I would never like round off prices. I'd never tip them. I'd never treat them like that. They are small business people. They are too proud to charge a foreigner more. They will not charge a foreigner more because they're too proud. Okay? But if you, and again, this is getting into Chinese culture. Somebody might disagree with me. But if you kind of like insult them, make them lose face by saying, here you go, keep the change, okay? That's when they might start to think, hey, this guy doesn't respect us, he thinks we're losers, and next time he asks for, and look, I'll finish on this point because it is fantastic. When you start going to a market regularly, when I lived in Qingdao, I was going to the market like 2 or 3 times a week. It just got ridiculous because every single market holder I went to, they would like, there was a lady I remember, she would like always give me some free vegetables, like have a carrot. Like she wouldn't let me walk away. She would give me something every time. And I used to accept it. I didn't sort of stop her from doing it. And I think it gave her, I don't know, because a lot of the time, like, even though you're a foreigner, you're also like, they're looking at you and they're thinking, hey, I've got a son the same age as him, or wow, he's far from his country. So even though some of the other people on YouTube are kind of talking about all the negative things about living in China, that's been my experience. So anyway, hope everybody's having a good day, and I hope that this helps you if you do come to China. So yeah, thank you.